Well, good evening, everyone. This is the December 9th, 2024 meeting of the Barnstable Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee. I'm Hector Gunther. I'm the chair. Consistent with Massachusetts law, I have to ask if anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, to make yourself known. And if no one is, we'll proceed with a roll call. Chris, can you call the roll, please?
Yes. Hector.
I'm here.
Chuck.
Here.
Lillian.
Here.
Jim.
Present.
Tom.
Here.
Jeremy.
I am here.
Chris.
Here.
And I am here.
Great. So we do have a quorum. Happy December, everyone. And the first item on the agenda is to discuss and vote on the minutes from the November 25th meeting of CFAC. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Great. Any comments on the text of the minutes?
I thought that looked good.
All right. Hearing no comments, let's take a vote. Go ahead, Chris.
Hector.
I abstain since I wasn't at the November 25th meeting.
Okay. Chuck.
Yes, accept. Yep.
Lillian.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
And I am a yes. So what's that? Seven yeses and one abstention.
All right.
Passes.
All right. So moving on to the substance of the meeting, the main topic tonight is to review the draft report on the CWMP plan funding model. And before we launch into that discussion, I have a question for Mark. So, Mark, the last Excel spreadsheet that you sent around was dated the 2nd of October. Is that and there were three Excel models attached to that email. Are those the most recent Excel models that you've circulated to CFAC?
The entire group, yes, but I have circulated another version, but just to Tom as he was completing the report.
Okay. So did that what you circulated have more than three scenarios?
No, it was a fourth scenario that took into account the town adopting a neutral flow policy, land use policy, making us eligible for 0% financing through the Mass Clean Water Trust.
Okay.
Water projects, and how would that impact? And it's all that impact of that model is reflected in the latest report that we'll review tonight.
Right. Just query, when we circulate this report to the town council, we should consider attaching an Excel model or models just as a thought, so people can look at the model as they review the text of our report. That's just a suggestion.
I would agree. And what I would suggest is that, Mark, we just take the most recent version of it and do a base case of it. And that's the one. So then people can, play with the model as they see fit. And just to clarify, for the members of CFAC, the change that Mark made was at my request. The model had built into it a certain amount of support from the general fund. But when you go down to effectively 0% financing, the amount of support from the general fund actually can drop. And so he built that functionality into there.
Okay, so it drops, but not so far that the balance goes to the red.
Correct. So and again, when we go through this, I can show you pretty clearly on that. But yes, in no case
Okay.
are we trying to go negative.
Okay, great.
But beauty of 0% financing is it's 0% financing.
Right. But that was the only change in that model.
That basically is the change. Yeah, I'm not aware
Yeah.
of anything else.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll open it up to discussion. Chris, you circulated a draft and a red line dated 2 days ago, December 7th. So
Yeah, I did. Right.
I
So,
propose that we work from that. So do I hear any comments on the latest draft?
Yes, I'll start off with that. I think it's just an outstanding report. I particularly like the four alternatives that you put together at the very beginning on page 5. That sets the stage, and I think it's so clear as you begin the discussion thereafter. So great job.
thank you.
Amen. I want to concur with that. I mean, it was an impressive piece of work, Tom. For someone that's just joined, you've got a great background and you joined the committee and just jumped in. It's fabulous. So can't
Thanks.
thank you enough.
Okay, other comments?
I like the Tom, I like the I don't know what you called it in your email, but I like the combining the graphs to simplify for the reader. I thought that was terrific. So I'm all in favor of that as opposed to the prior version.
Yeah, it was just getting unwieldy. And as soon as we added in 2 more alternatives, it was, you could just see people's eyes glazing over. My eyes were glazing over. I figured everyone else would.
It also keeps you from having to do the back and forth thing. So
Exactly.
that's awesome. Yep.
So
Well done.
I feel you've captured the edge cases for the finance committee to take a look at this. Worst case, best case, and a couple of scenarios that have some modifications around the worst case and best case. So the edge cases are captured well. And I think everyone can, if you have the simulations or the Excel files, whoever wants to go in and then fool around with all of the different variables would then be able to see what could happen inside the edge cases, which is great.
That's right. I mean, you can create really, really bad recessions with this,
Yes.
or you can, create fantastic growth and see what happens.
And so now that I'm speaking, the only thing I'll ask is I'm too new to have had the Excel models sent to me. If you wouldn't mind, I would like the copies of the Excel models so I could kind of tool through them.
Yeah, I'll send all 4 to every committee member. And
Perfect.
so
Thank you.
they'll have them. And just one comment, Hector, for
Mhm.
Tom. On page 5, under alternative scenario number 4, you referenced the general obligation bond rate drops near 0. That's the Mass Clean Water Trust borrowing rate. That's the one
Right.
that drops to 0. So I would just change general obligation bond to the Mass Clean Water Trust financing. And that will drop from 1.7% to 0.3%.
Right. I'm Mark, but that is what I did here, right?
Oh, I don't see. I
Do
see
you-
general obligation bond rate. Maybe I'm looking
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
numbers. Okay.
Scenario number 4, and I think what Mark's saying is the rate, technically speaking, is the Clean Water Trust rate, not the bond market rate.
Right.
And isn't that what the table shows, or am I missing
Oh,
this?
it's not in the table. It's in the text.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So did I mess up? I'm sorry.
The
Yeah.
4th bullet on page 5, you would just change that label, correct, Mark?
That's correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, right. You're completely
Yeah.
right. Sorry about that. Yes, the table's correct. My language was wrong. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
And then the third, there's just a typo, third line from that bottom of that scenario, the word town needs to be correctly spelled. You see that, Tom?
Third
Third line from the bottom, first word. And
page 5.
yeah, in the fourth bullet on page 5. Third line from the bottom, first word. I have TWON in my version.
Oh, well, that would be a mistake. All right, I'll fix that.
Now I do have a question, and this is more by way of definition. So we refer to the base case, capital B. I think the first reference is on page 1, but the base case model, even though this model reflects only funding over the next 5 years, or the current capital, the current 5 years of the current capital plan, the base case, if I'm not mistaken, refers to the 35 years of the model out to 2061, or whatever the number of years are. That's right? When we say base case, we're referring to the current 5-year plan and the financial implications out to the end of the model time period,
Right.
61. So it's what, 26, 27 years.
Right.
Yeah. So I wonder if we might consider defining that the first time we use base case. Just for clarity, it's probably not necessary. So maybe on page 1, where the second bullet, to assess whether base case variables are realistic, we might want to just clarify that we're talking about out to 2061. I'm not sure if do people agree with that? Or
I'm just not seeing where. So where are you seeing this on page?
So we use on page 1, Tom, you made that change that I suggested way back when, that this model only evaluates funding for the current 5-year plan.
Right.
But the base case itself is from fiscal 25 to fiscal 2061. So
Right.
I'm simply saying we might clarify for the reader that the base case refers to not only the current 5 years, but the implications of changes in the first 5 years out to 2061.
Let me just interject here. I think Tom mentions that specifically on page 2, under funding model, the second paragraph. The chart.
Right.
Yeah, so I think he does cover that.
Yeah, so he says that. So maybe that's a good point, Lillian. So maybe after on page 2, just that definition, as you say, the second full paragraph, maybe after the word FY 2061, put parenthesis, the base case, capital B, capital C, something like that, just so the reader is clear that we're referring to out through 2061 and not through the next 5 years.
I agree with that. I think more explicit we say, because we don't define the base case. So either way,
Right.
first page or the second page, it connects the two, and that's where there isn't a connection yet. So I agree.
Right.
Okay. So I guess, so the base case is every one of these scenarios, the base case and scenarios 1 through 4, are all assume the same amount of spending. Okay. And
Right.
through FY 29. And then all the base case is Mark's finance team's best guess
Right.
about what the future holds in terms of interest rates and the like. And so when I pull it together, if you look on page 6 on the table, you'll see the base case, the base case assumptions. All right, his variables there. That's Mark's finance team's best guess right now. And then what
Right.
we did is we simply modified that. And so I don't want to make it, I mean, the base, 6 months from now, Mark and the finance team will probably change that too. As the real world, as we see things changing.
Right.
So I guess I'm not clear what, so on page 4, I really try to explain the base case.
Right,
Page 4.
Right?
page 4.
Yeah.
And that's where I really explain the base case. Prior to that,
Right.
I'm not talking about the base case. Prior to that, I'm just talking about the Excel model itself. Is
Right.
it logically sound? Are the variables in there sensible? If you modify those variables, does it have an impact you think that would be sensible, suggesting that the formula in there are all correct? It's
Right.
the base case that I talk about on page 4.
Right. But in your conception, Tom, the base case pertains to the period fiscal 2025 to fiscal 2061.
65,
That's-
is it 65,
To
right,
six-
Mark?
to 65,
Right.
65?
65.
I'm looking,
Am I wrong on that, Mark? Is it 65?
the chart on
I think it's
page,
2061 as the chart on page 4 indicates. It goes out
Yeah.
to
So
2061.
that's why I was
2061.
with 61.
yeah, all I'm suggesting, and I think Jeremy agreed, is that we should define the base case period. And I think, it's not to quarrel over what is the base case or not. And one suggestion would be on the top of page 2, where you reference, as Lillian pointed out, the commitments from fiscal 25 to 2061. I would just put a hyphen after 61 and put the base case, the period of the base case, or something like that, of the base
It's the
case.
period of this model, not of the base case. The
Right.
base case is just a certain set of variables. Every one of those is the base case, but we modify the variables. All right, so every one of those alternatives goes through 2061.
Right.
So the first time that you make reference to the base case is on page 1, on the second bullet, underneath town council intern request, blah, blah,
Right.
blah.
Right.
All right, so in that sentence, I would recommend saying to assess whether the base case, comma, as defined on page 4, comma, variables are, or base case variables as defined on page 4 are realistic. So that you define the base case and point everyone to page 4 to take a look at what is your definition of the base case, or what is the definition of the base case.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I'm trying.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. That makes sense.
That's it.
Because
That's
I mean, Hector, you were worried about people getting lost in the report, and the first time that they see base case, they would get lost. So if you define where to find the definition of that, then they have the ability to find it.
Yeah, I think that's right. And Chris, I think your suggestion is a good one. My only comment is the length of the time period that we're talking about. And that's why I suggest that, we define the fiscal year period at some point, but it's not a big deal. I do think on page 4, Tom Keene, where you below the chart of assumptions, you write the general fund contribution through fiscal year 2065.
I just changed that. Yeah, that was my error.
Yeah. So 2061 there. But so at any rate, if people think it's clear, I'm willing to stand down on this point. But I thought it would be helpful just to make sure that people understood that the base case period is not the current 5-year plan period. It's the entire period out through fiscal year 2061. That's all.
Let me see if I can do something on the base case.
Okay, okay,
To make that clear. So, and just so everyone is, I think so we're all on the same page. So we're talking about a set of spending that's going to occur between now and FY 29. But of course,
Right.
no one can pay for that spending. So
Right.
what the town is doing is borrowing the money and then paying
Right.
it off all the way through 2061. That's
Right.
what happens all of the case here.
right.
Okay, I'll make sure that that's clear.
Okay.
Okay.
But I agree with Lillian. I think, Tom, you've done an excellent job condensing a lot of complexity into 7 pages of text, and it's really clear. And I guess my only suggestion is, that, and maybe we leave this up to Tom to consider whether we attach an Excel model when this gets transmitted to town council, whether we attach the Excel model in the
Oh,
event that,
I think that's a great idea.
yeah, in the event, so you might want to, at the end of the report, just say, copy of the Excel models attached or something like that.
Right. Mark, how will this be? I mean, we'll obviously we're not going to print it out. That would be crazy, but we would attach the model itself as probably just as a separate attachment in an email.
Yeah, we could convert the document to a PDF and just email all the counselors the PDF version of your report along with the Excel file. And I think what we should do is just email them one Excel file, the base case.
I
Yeah.
agree.
And then they can go through there and change the assumptions that you highlighted on your table here to get the same result as you did, to see how it works.
Right. Mark,
I don't wanna
do you have a
Excel
place?
files.
Do you have a shared drive where we could just give people a link?
I don't know. I would
Shouldn't
have
we?
to.
Shouldn't
I would
we
have
have
to
a shared
IT.
drive?
Yeah, I mean, I could do that. I could just upload and just put it out there so people can download it, or we can do it as an attachment. Yeah, maybe that's better because people do it as a shared drive, then they start making changes and people don't know what happened. So I agree. Let's just do it as an attachment.
I think it's highly unlikely anybody on the council will want to play with the model anyway. I do have a
Not
question.
Hector.
Sorry?
I
Some of us
bet they
are.
will.
Well, then we should send them the Excel version, but
Yeah, no, I think that's what we'll do.
yeah. Tom, on page 6, the alternative scenarios, you have yellow highlighting.
Right. So I actually realized, so the yellow highlighting shows you the change from the base case.
In each of the respective columns,
Right.
each of the 4 scenarios.
Right.
Okay. And does it say that somewhere?
No, that's right. I just realized I never did that.
Yeah.
And so I'll fix that too.
Okay. All right.
Hector, I
Other
think
Sorry.
Councilor Tamish is on and he had a question.
No, I was just commenting to Hector that perhaps some counselors might want to play with it.
Okay.
No, I bet they will.
All
If
right.
I
So
were the town council, I would.
Yeah.
So just for clarity, then we are going to attach an Excel version of the model, Mark, not a PDF of the model.
Correct.
Correct, an Excel version, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Craig, since you're on, did you have any comments? Did you participate in the last meeting, Craig?
I didn't. I was unable to, and for some reason I didn't get this version. I was going to get it from Mark at some point, so I don't have anything in front of me to really discuss. But I have been following along with the discussion, and once again, you guys are doing a fantastic job. The level of detail that you're getting down to is amazing.
So you don't have a copy of Tom Kane's latest
I don't
draft in
have
front?
a, no, I don't.
All right.
Okay,
Well, what I'll make sure is I'm making some small changes in this right now. Just
okay,
make sure I get that out to everybody.
okay,
Yeah, Tom, if you could make sure I was on the distribution list, that'd be great.
Sure.
yeah. Because Craig, I was gonna put you on the spot and see if you had any comments on Tom's draft, but I won't do that since you haven't seen it.
Okay.
But so what I would propose procedurally is that we vote on Tom's draft, subject to any final tweaks, but that we would tonight we would vote to approve it unless someone else has a different perspective. Are people okay with voting up or down, subject to Tom's final tweaks?
I think that's reasonable.
I
Yeah.
agree.
I think that's what we
Granted,
left it last week. Yep.
yeah,
And what I will do is just so everyone's clear, after this meeting, I will send you a red line of the small changes I made. So
okay.
if there's any
Okay.
concern.
A red line as well as a clean version of the final
Right.
report.
Yep.
Final, yep.
Okay,
Lillian,
move the approval of this fabulous report.
I-
With Tom's changes that he's about to make.
I second that for this fabulous report.
all right. If there's no more discussion, Chris Lauzon, would you call the roll?
Hector,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Lillian,
Yes,
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. It's unanimous.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, next item on the agenda is correspondence from committee members. Does anyone have any comments, suggestions, thoughts? Jim Sproul, do you want to talk about our get together?
Yes.
And
Love to. So I apologize. We had lots of trouble with my Google invite, but it seems like 7 out of 8 of the council members have selected December 18th at 5:30 at Pizza Barbone in Hyannis. I only selected that one because it has a nice round table, and it's a lot more conducive for a conversation. Unfortunately, Tom, I don't know if you could change and join us, but that was the most.
Unfortunately, it's my daughter's birthday.
oh, we'd
Well,
be
we
happy
can go to
for
that
her
party.
to celebrate.
We can go to
with
that
us.
party. Where
I
is
mean,
that going to be?
it's
Where are
either
you having
either alienate all of you or alienate her, and I think I'm gonna vote to alienate all of you. So.
So I think it would just be great just to get together and get an opportunity to meet one another, and so it's all kind of come together. And thanks for everybody for participating.
Yeah. And Jim, I know I asked this in an email, but this is without spouses or partners, correct?
Right, and that, as I replied in the email, yes, that's correct. And then we can
Okay.
do, when it gets warmer and we can
Yeah.
be outdoors, we could take another stab at it, but.
And are we gonna beam Director Milne in somehow?
We'll zoom him in. Somebody's got to pay the bill.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It comes right out of our budget,
Yeah.
our copious budget. All right, well, that's good. Does anyone else have any comments? Correspondence from committee members?
I have a couple of other things that I wanted just to throw out there. I don't know,
Super.
what's the next topic?
Sorry?
What's next on the agenda? I don't know if I'm in the right spot.
Well, we're still on comments from members of the committee.
Okay.
Anything you want to raise? I have one
So-
item that I want to raise.
I was watching the school committee and also meeting last week, and they're making significant planning headway for their facilities and their capital improvement programs. And, there's lots of discussion about overrides et cetera. These repairs are highly needed. There's, we've talked about the reports that they have done. They've retained a consultant. I think they said it's over 100 million. And, they are beginning their planning phase as how to approach the council on the funding vehicles that they could have at their disposal to begin a campaign like that. And I bring this up to the committee because it will be a big part of discussion during our CIP period. And then also it could have impact with other funding as we move along in next year. So I guess highlighting that, I'm trying to bring to our attention that do we want to offer through the council any assistance or help, or rather be in. My opinion is I'd rather be in front of this than coming up from the backside, but that's just one of the things that I wanted to talk about. And the other was follow up on what Tom had mentioned about a shared drive. I think it's kind of important that we consider that. I mean, it makes it a lot easier to house documents that we want to view, et cetera. And I don't know if it's a big deal to do at the town level, but certainly Google Drives can be, they may not be secure, but they can be certainly, like with Tom's question about editing, you can put somebody in view mode only, et cetera. There's lots of tools, but I just wanted to throw that out as well. So with that,
Well, that's great. So maybe your first point about the school committee's budget process and their plans for the upcoming CIP. Mark, you're doubtless, Gareth and you are doubtless plugged into this. Do you have any comments on what the first part of what Jim raised?
Yeah, so there's I think two separate issues here. One being, there's submissions that they will be making for their FY26 projects and those in the outer years. Secondly, how we go about funding all of that is a much bigger discussion beyond the development of the FY26 capital budget. So although I see those as two very distinct and separate issues that we'll have to handle in a different manner. So perhaps a conversation, maybe you begin with a conversation with the school department about that presentation that they gave to the school committee at their last meeting, and another conversation specifically about the projects that they're requesting funding for in FY26.
So your concept, Mark, is, and doubtless Jim will agree with this, to get, I guess, the superintendent to attend one of our upcoming meetings, or maybe a member of the school committee who would represent the committee in talking to us about their plans.
I would leave that up to the superintendent and the leadership of the school committee to decide who they would like to attend this meeting, or this group's meeting, to talk about that strategy and that presentation that they had. But I can certainly reach out to the superintendent, expressing your desire to meet with them to have a presentation of what was given to the school committee and start a conversation.
That's excellent. Jim, how does that sound to you?
that sounds great. And they are school committee members were discussing that they want to begin conversations with the town council. That's why I'm bringing it up to our attention, that I think that it would be good to have a presentation.
Right.
So that we
So
don't
so I would propose that we schedule that discussion for one of the first meetings we have in January. Mark, I don't think I've seen the 2025 CFAC schedule. Is would the first meeting be January 7th or 14th? So this
Typically, it would be the 14th.
It would be the Monday, the 6th, or Monday, the 13th.
It's normally the second and fourth Mondays of the month.
Okay.
this committee
Okay.
meets. However, I think the 13th is a holiday. I'll double check that, and so it might be Tuesday the 14th could be your first meeting in 2025.
Okay.
And what is
So
the
yeah, it's
holiday, the 20th or the 13th?
20th.
20th. Okay, so the 13th should work. That'll be the first.
okay. So CFAC. So Mark, you'll reach out to the superintendent and see if we can line them up for
Yes.
that first meeting in January the 13th.
Yes.
Now this presentation, Jim, that you watched a
Just a
replay of, right?
recording, yeah, just the town.
Yeah, and they
YouTube.
were operating from a slide deck.
Yes, I believe they were. I'm
So
sorry,
I think
I
it'd
can't
be,
be that definitive. I was kind of scrolling through it, but
yeah, it would be most helpful, Mark, if they could, if the superintendent or the finance person from the school department could circulate that slide deck to you, and in turn you could distribute it to us. Probably before Christmas, if you can get it.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Before we move on, talking about the Capitol, traditionally there's a Capitol workshop of all the department heads in December, and a couple of CFAC members have always been invited to attend. I talked with Gareth last week, and the time and place had not yet been determined because it keeps growing in numbers. So if we could, I know that Tom and Chris King and Jeremy and Chris Lawson have not attended, but for those of us who have, it is very, very helpful as we move into our capital budget. So Mark, if you could figure out when that's going to take place and let our members know so that whoever has time, it's normally from 10 to 3, and the department heads talk about all of their capital submissions for the next fiscal year, and it's invaluable for CFAC.
Right.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Lillian. We had a meeting today to talk about this, and we are looking to schedule the task force meeting on Monday, January 6th, 2025, from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. It's going to be an
Wow.
all-day workshop because of the number of projects that we're going to try to discuss. We're trying to get it to as many as possible. There's well over 100, and so we're blocking a whole day off for the task force to meet. As you said, we've always had a couple of CFAC members attend to observe the process. Certainly, we'd like to invite CFAC to have a couple members there again this year. So we want to mark your calendars. That's the date. It's going to be, we've secured the selectmen's conference room for the meeting. And yeah, so that's it. Yeah.
Thank you.
that's great. And Lillian, you make the excellent point that some of us have not been to that. So I think now is probably the time to invite people to raise their hands if they're free on that date. And
well, if you're
you're
going to raise your hand, you should be. That's part of, it should be on the CIP committee, right? The subcommittee,
that's right.
right? So if you're raising your hand, you're also raising it to say you're interested in the CIP.
Right. And maybe for Chris King's benefit,
Mhm.
Chris, each year this committee issues a formal report. I'm not sure if you've looked at our drive on the town council website, but if you look at in the CFAC section of the town council website, you'll see annual reports of the town's capital budget and of the town's operating budget. And ordinarily, we divide into two subcommittees. And as Jim mentioned, the first subcommittee would would review and audit the CIP process that this year is going to take place on January 6th, and then participate in drafting the CIP report, and then the operating budget report will come second. So does anyone have a strong interest in working on the CIP report? I see Jeremy's hand up.
Yes.
And I see Jim Sproul. So you two should, unless there are other folks who want to go to this meeting on the 6th to observe, Jeremy and Jim, I think we'd be happy to delegate this for each of you. Jeremy, are you available that day? Are you teaching that day?
I should be able to get a professional development day approved on it, but I will
Okay.
But I would be surprised if it did not get approved.
Okay. That's
So-
excellent. And
So
sorry,
I've
go
looked,
ahead.
I'm sorry, Hector. I've looked at
Yep.
that date also, and I could make myself available, and I agree. I did look at the annual reports.
Right.
I did not know how much involvement this group had in creating the reports, but I'd like to get involved as much as I can.
Okay. And do you have a preference for capital budgeting, the capital budget report, or the operating budget report?
No preference.
Okay.
Either
Okay.
one would be fine.
Okay.
If this first meeting is capital and is well covered, I'll get involved with the operations.
Okay.
The operating.
Okay. Good. All right. And Tom Keene, you haven't been to one of these CIP planning sessions, I don't think.
No, I haven't. I'm not
so
sure I can
maybe-
make that day.
Sorry?
I can't make it that day.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe
I
we'll
have a job during the day.
we'll draft you for the same meeting a year from now. How about that?
All right.
Clear your calendar. All right. And then Jim, you had a second comment. What was your second comment? I'm sorry.
Not sure. I'm not sure. These things fly in and out pretty quickly, so.
Yeah. So you talked about the capital budgeting
Correct.
report.
It was a shared
So-
drive comment.
Shared drive, yes.
Oh, I mean, oh, that-
So Mark, what is the IT people are probably going to have something to say about our setting up a shared drive. What would be the protocol and what permissions would we need if CFAC were to set up a shared drive?
Yeah, I'd have to talk to our IT department to see how they could do that within the town's network and how they would provide you access. If they can't
Right.
do that, then as someone suggested here, we're probably going to have to do it through using the Google platform.
Right. And are there any open meeting law
right.
implications for setting up a shared drive?
It could be. I mean, if people are going in there and making, edits to reports and communicating back and forth about those changes,
Yeah.
those kind of things need to be done in public.
Yeah,
Public
yeah.
session. So, yeah,
Well-
it might have to be a static drive that doesn't allow for editing, but as I think someone suggested, you could set it up for view only.
Okay. All right. Well, if you could explore that with IT and whomever,
Sure.
not the possibility of setting up a shared drive, and if there are any OML implications, and we can talk about that at the next meeting. Speaking of which, several of you have have asked whether this committee was going to meet. Again, it's my understanding that we do have a scheduled meeting for the 23rd of December. Is that correct, Mark?
Yes.
That's on the calendar, and I'm certainly open to since that's a couple of days before Christmas. I'm open to anyone suggesting that we cancel that meeting, but I'd like to hear from you all.
Makes sense to me.
It's a busy time of year. Chris King, how about you?
I was unaware of the schedule of this meeting, but it seems like it's every other week.
Yeah, every other Monday, unless it's a holiday.
Okay. And I'm fine with canceling that meeting.
Okay. Chuck, how do you feel?
Well, I think I already shared with you that I would be all for putting that one off if there isn't anything that's pressing for
Yeah.
family reasons.
So, all right. And then anyone else have any comments, burning desire to meet on the 23rd, or are you open to postponing? Chris Lauzon, how do you feel?
I've got plenty to do before Christmas, so we can
Yeah.
adjourn for the year if everyone's all right with that. That's fine with me.
Yeah,
Sounds like a plan.
that's right. And I, speaking personally, I have a family of 3 kids under the age of 6 landing on our doorstep the afternoon of the 23rd. So it would suit me if we canceled.
Here, here.
All right, so Mark, do we need to vote on canceling the meeting, or can we just agree?
No,
That's
we can just
okay.
agree. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll make a note and put it up on update the website to indicate.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and can you have Gareth circulate the meeting schedule for 2025?
Yes, we'll get that out to everybody in a couple of days and for your review, and then we can go over that in the first meeting in January, which will be on we just talked 13th,
13th.
second Monday of January.
All right.
Can
All
I
right.
interject, Mark? Can we get the budget calendar for 20 for next year as well? You know, we have the budget calendar.
Yeah,
The budget
yeah,
action calendar.
I thought I sent
I
that to
sent it out.
everybody
We've been out.
already, but
Well,
I can send that out again.
Thank
It's on
you.
the website.
I
It's-
missed
it's
it
on-
somehow.
You'll see it on the
It-
website.
Yeah, it's posted on the website, but Mark, I don't think you've sent it to us, but that
Thank
would
you
be
very
helpful.
much.
Okay.
That would be
Hector?
helpful. Yes.
Just as a point of information, I just sent to you the school department PowerPoint from the December 4th meeting regarding their capital needs. And that is on their website under the, as I say, the December 4th meeting, section 5.1, the facilities subcommittee presentation.
Okay,
If
great.
anyone wants to look at it, or you could distribute that back out to the committee.
All right.
Yeah, so that's the
Mark, what-
slide deck you were asking for, Hector.
Right.
That was presented.
Right. So, I'm happy for every member of the committee go to the town website and pull that, but Mark, maybe you could have Gareth circulate that slide deck to everyone. Craig, thank you very much. It hasn't hit my inbox yet, but
It was a text. I sent you a text.
oh, you sent me a text.
It was
Okay.
attached to a text, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right. So that's really all I had, except to ask Mark, are there for upcoming meetings in January, are there other topics that you want to put on our agenda?
No, it's just the capital plan. It's, thinking about what department heads you want to bring in. Obviously, it's the school department. You'll want to talk to them about their capital submissions and DPW.
Right.
That's the bulk of the capital plan. So I think we want to, schedule having both Department of Public Works and the school in for maybe perhaps your January meetings to review their submissions or have a
All right.
conversation about their submissions. But there are over 100. You're not going to want to have you don't have the time, and you're probably not going to want to listen to a presentation in every single one of those. But we will provide you the write-ups for all the capital submissions, and then perhaps you can select the ones that you'd like them to go over with you.
Right. And
That's if
is
you
it
want
you-
to approach it that way. It's up to you as to how you want to approach this, but that's typically what we've done in the past is have the departments review their priorities.
right. So this, we had talked about having the school superintendent in on the 13th. So would that date be the date when they would technically be presenting their capital budget requests and reviewing them for this committee?
Yeah, I would say that's the first thing you would focus on with them, as opposed to the comprehensive plan that they presented to the school committee last week or the week before, because we want to start there, the immediate short term, what we need to get done, and then that's
Mhm.
a longer vision, and perhaps if there's time, we could talk to them about that at the back end of the meeting, or reschedule with them at another time to have that discussion.
Okay, so that would be a second discussion with the school,
Yep.
superintendent. So should we make, and forgive me, and this would be Lillian's institutional memory, but when last year, Lillian, did we start the presentations from DPW, CWMP and so forth?
We started them in January.
Yeah, so should we consider teeing up DPW for the 27th of January? Mark, do you believe?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So let's line them up. So schools on the 13th, DPW on the 27th. And the last year, did we have CWMP as a separate presentation?
No, we did not.
No. They were integral to the
Yeah,
DPW.
we had the police come in.
Okay. So maybe the police would be the 10th of February. Is the 10th of February a holiday? Craig, do you have the holiday schedule?
Let's see.
Is
No,
that
the 17th is.
okay? So if people agree, Mark, maybe we could put on your to-do list to talk to the police department about the 10th of February to come in and give.
Yeah, I would suggest that, we create that spreadsheet every year of all the capital submissions by department.
Okay,
Once we have that completed, I'll send that out to the committee, and then we can discuss who you would like to invite in based on what the
Okay.
submissions are. Because you may find the police may have a couple of projects under the capital
Yeah.
program. They're not going to have a lot of capital.
okay, okay.
And so you
So-
can choose who to meet with based on that.
So you'll circulate that and we'll discuss the timing on the 13th of January when we meet.
Yeah.
In addition to having the school.
Right.
But I think it makes sense to line up DPW for the 27th of January, unless you disagree, Mark.
I agree.
Okay.
Because those are the big ones. The schools
Yeah.
and DPW. That's a bulk. That's 95% of our capital program.
Okay. Good. So Mark, are there other topics that we should be focused on? I guess the answer is no. That we're really zeroing in on the capital budget now.
Yeah, you're going to move right into the operating budget soon after that.
Right. And how, and again, my memory from last year is hazy and Lillian was chair, but how did we go about assigning committee, the subcommittees to us. So I assume that Jeremy and Jim Sproul are on the capital budget committee. But Lillian, how did you go about assigning people last year? Or did you ask people to raise their hands?
Basically, we got people to volunteer for each of the subcommittees.
Okay,
So that it ended up pretty even.
yeah,
Except sometimes Chuck and I would do double duty on one of
right.
the committees, yeah.
All right. So maybe what we do is what I'll do is I'll ask committee members to take a look at last year's two reports on the operating budget and on the capital budget. And on the 13th, I'll solicit your preferences for one subcommittee or the other. How's that sound, folks?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So that's all correspondence from committee members. Mark, any other staff communications?
At the last council meeting, the tax factor and residential exemption votes were taken. We are sticking with a single tax rate for all classes of property. So a residential factor of 1 was approved. And then the continuation of a 25% residential exemption was also approved.
Right.
So those are the two. You may have already known that. If you watched the meeting, but if you didn't, I just wanted to provide you an update.
Right.
Counts after that.
Yeah. Now, Mark, further to the level of the residential exemption, I believe there was discussion at that town council meeting about the possibility of Barnstable designating itself as a seasonal community, or does the state designate towns? And what's the update on that process, if any?
Yeah, so seasonal communities designation is created by the state. They determine what communities will be considered as seasonal or will receive the seasonal designation. They've created a committee at the state level to consider what factors will be taken into account, and then to determine whether or not you're a seasonal community or not. And then I think by the end of this calendar or this fiscal year, June 2025, we'll know whether or not they consider Barnstable a seasonal community. And then I do believe that the town would have the option to accept or reject that designation. I don't think it's they can force that upon us, but I do believe it's the option in what they've created for a community to reject it if they didn't want it. But one of the items that was talked about at the council level is that if you do receive the seasonal communities designation, that residential exemption could go up to as much as 50%.
Right.
It's currently capped at 35%, but it could go as high as 50%. And that's an attempt to recognize, communities that have a large secondary home ownership population that reduces housing stock available to year-round residents, and so it allows you to place more of the tax burden on those second homeowners. So that's the reasoning behind that.
Right. So this is a question for Craig. Craig, has the topic of seasonal communities been discussed in any more detail among council members, to your knowledge?
It has not, until the state comes through with more information and kind of fleshes the whole thing out. There really has not been much of a discussion.
Right.
Just kind of as a side note, as Mark said, we kept the exemption at 25%. We could go up to 35%, but last year we discussed it quite extensively when we did move it up to the 25%. That we wanted to kind of leave that last 10%, and maybe now the last 25%, if it actually does go up to the 50, as kind of a relief valve for overrides or the sewer projects or whatever happens to be coming down the road. So
Right,
that was the thought process on not immediately jumping up to 30 or 35%.
right,
We were looking to have some flexibility in the future.
right. And that makes a lot of sense. Mark or Craig, does either of you know what other towns on the Cape or the Vineyard or Nantucket are currently seasonal communities?
Yeah, it's in the slide deck that we shared with the
Yeah.
committee. I think you have Mashpee, Truro, Provincetown, Nantucket, and I think maybe another one out in the Vineyard. But there, yeah, it's in that slide deck. One of the
Yeah,
show all eight. There's 18 communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that have a residential exemption, and I think there's 5 or 6 on Cape and the Islands.
right, that have seasonal community designation.
No,
you mean?
no, no,
no, see,
residential
that's- yeah.
exemptions. Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. But are any of the Cape and Islands communities designated as a seasonal community currently?
That designation has not been made yet. by
Okay.
the state.
So this is,
Other than the islands, I believe they immediately qualified both Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard as seasonal communities. But as far as Cape Cod goes, that designation has not been made yet.
right. So this seasonal communities concept is not a new one. They're just considering broadening it, or the state has a
No.
committee that,
Oh,
It's
new.
new. It's new.
it is new. Okay, all right. Anyway, well, I think that's interesting, and so we'll wait to hear more. Mark, one other question on state. There was that potential bill at the state level that would allow us to raise our meals tax and our rooms tax. I've forgotten what the name of the proposal was. Is there any update on that at the state level, to your knowledge?
They probably won't take that up until their next legislative session. But the Municipal Empowerment Act is what you're
That's
referring
it.
to, I believe. And
Right,
yeah, they failed to act on that before the last legislative session ended. So I would imagine they'll pick it back up and probably have a decision by the end of this fiscal year, June of 2025.
right.
As they go through their next budget deliberation, they'll probably pick that act up again, and hopefully we'll have a decision be made by the state.
And then, of course, once they make that decision, then the town has the flexibility to tweak its tax rates.
Yeah, you have, it requires local authorization to
Yeah.
implement anything that they do approve through that act.
Yeah, so. All right, that's good. Does anyone else have any questions for Mark? All right, so we're agreed that we're going to schedule our next meeting for Monday, January 13th. Mark, you're going to circulate the slide deck, the budget action calendar, and Tom, you're going to circulate and the up-to-date spreadsheet, if there's a new spreadsheet for the funding model. And Tom, you're going to circulate a red line and a clean version of the tweaked funding model. Did we vote on
Yes.
the presentation? Yes,
Yes, we
we
did.
did vote. Okay. All right,
Hector, I just want to make one clarification on what I'm going to circulate.
please.
I think what I'll circulate to the committee as far as Excel spreadsheets go is the base case model.
Right,
And
right.
then you can make the changes to the base case model assumptions that
Right,
are highlighted in the report to see how they impact the financing of the CWMP.
okay,
Rather than sending you 5 different Excel versions, I'll send you
Yeah.
the base case, and then you
Okay.
can do the assumptions to match what's in your report.
right,
And the results of what that happened.
Okay.
Okay.
okay. All right, that sounds good. Anybody else have any comments other than happy holidays?
That's it.
That's it.
So
See-
do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Sorry, Chuck, we didn't make the 48 minutes that you achieved in the last meeting.
Hector, you're trying, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
We've identified the problem though.
Did we get a second for the adjournment?
I'll second.
Chris Lazan, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Hector,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Lillian,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Great. Well, happy holidays, everyone.